Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Now, I know, you have heard story after story after story about major fraud stings around the country, specifically in Minnesota, where Governor Tim Walz told us that the buck stopped with him and that they'd caught all of this Medicare fraud and all of the fraud there was to be found. Well, wouldn't you know it? Today, Assistant Attorney General Colin McDonald. We are now through so many Assistant and Deputy Attorney General or Attorneys General because they all have to be in different parts of the country announcing various fraud stings from a couple of $1 million to hundreds of millions of dollars to maybe upwards of $1 billion in certain areas. So this Assistant Attorney General, Colin McDonald, announced criminal charges against 15 more defendants in Minnesota for fraud schemes that targeted over $90 million in taxpayer funds. Check this out.
Today, we are announcing criminal charges against 15 defendants in Minnesota for fraud schemes that targeted over $90 million in taxpayer dollars. Let me be clear up front about something. This is not the end of our work in Minnesota. This is not the end of the beginning of our work in Minnesota. This is the beginning of our work in Minnesota.
And why? Because right after we got through a major sentencing, so Amy Brock, the ringleader of the massive $250 million Feed Our Future COVID fraud scheme in Minnesota. And I mean, look at this. This lady's just an absolute peach. Right after she was sentenced to 41 years in prison and some change. Another major series of fraud indictments have hit the floor. So some of these individuals, in one case, according to FBI Director Kash Patel, he says defendants developed a scheme worth over $40 million to target the early intensive development and behavioral intervention, an autism healthcare program, paying kickbacks to parents who fraudulently used autism centers to diagnose just any kid you got, diagnose them, hey, slap them with an autism diagnosis. Now, we joke about this kind of in the millennial and the Gen Z and the I Alpha generations on down. Anyone who's a little bit different, we joke has a touch of the tism. But to actually defraud the state of Minnesota and the United States federal government by just claiming any kid at all has autism for kickbacks is genuinely insane. I mean, it is beyond the pale that we were originally told in this particular instance. Check it out.
So to run taxpayer-funded programs. An autism program that cost the taxpayer $600,000 just 6 years ago skyrocketed to over $400 million.
400 million. So again, and we talked about this on the show. We went through this particular data. We said, hey, the autism, the amount of money that the state of Minnesota spent on autism about 10 years ago has suddenly skyrocketed to over $400 million from $600,000. It's just beyond nuts. It truly is bonkers. Even RFK Jr. getting in on this as well, kind of going over to the graph side on how bad this has gotten.
I want to start. I thought I was going to have a slide here. I want to call your attention to this, which is in your. Okay, here it is, which is in your packet. This was the cost of the early intervention and development program in 2020. It was $38.1 million. This is what we expected to be paying every year. Instead, this year it hit $442 million.
And no one from Minnesota said boo. No one from the Biden Department of Justice said boo. No one from the Internal Revenue Service. Or remember Janet Yellen and the Treasury Department, mistransitory inflation? Not a single red flag was raised. In fact, in the Biden administration, they had individuals that were just dropping investigations left and right. Lisa Monaco, the former deputy U.S. Attorney General under Joe Biden, has now been referred to the Department of Justice for allegedly covering up investigations into Microsoft's cybersecurity breaches. And you'll never guess who she went to work for after her time in the Biden administration: Microsoft. I know, truly shocking stuff. This was the entire Biden administration, was riddled, not just with, well, yeah, Biden had dementia, and there was that one bald guy that said he was a woman who stole luggage, and then there was the other guy in a skirt who was in the health department or what. No. There was rampant fraud. No wonder they didn't care if the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, just completely went AWOL and vanished from the earth to go get a prostate procedure done. Because all of this, everyone was doing the whole, I didn't see nothing, say nothing, didn't hear nothing, that kind of nonsense. So this latest fraud sting, this latest series of indictments, it's 7 different state-managed Medicaid programs that have been stolen from. One program has been completely shut down because there is nothing left. There was so much fraud, they were stripping the buildings. There ain't nothing. Facebook Marketplace couldn't retail enough to keep the building open from the furniture that was inside. That's how bad the fraud was at these, and might still be, in these businesses that Tim Walz was turning a blind eye to.
One of the programs has been completely shut down because there's no money left. It's all gone. That was Minnesota's state-run Housing Stabilization Services program, designed to help the homeless find and maintain housing. It was estimated in 2020 that it would cost only about $2.5 million a year to fund this program, but it ended up costing almost 50 times that much, over $104 million by 2024 due to fraud.
Now, I'm going to say this right up front. Normally, I try to keep some of the analysis and the commentary side of things for later on in the show, but it should be stated and it should be underlined and bolded like it's in the DNC autopsy. We're going to get to that in a minute. That all of these various programs were not under such intense scrutiny under the leadership of Pam Bondi at the DOJ. I didn't see it. What I would see from Pam Bondi when one of these things would come to light, she would stand at the podium, she would issue very vague statements, and not a whole lot would happen. Todd Blanche has sent every deputy, assistant, second assistant to the regional director of the Attorney General's office around the country. Also, may I say, at the direction of the fraud czar, J.D. Vance, along with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., along with Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, to Dr. Oz, all over. And they are tackling every single one of these. And you were told, just with all of the confidence on God's green earth, that when they would go around, when these major media outlets would go around, they'd send their reporter and they'd sit in the hotel room and they'd call up random people and ask if they'd seen the viral videos. They said, well, we couldn't find any evidence of fraud. Didn't find anything at all. One of these cases was a CNN reporter who was so incensed, so upset that Nick Shirley went around filming the daycare centers, that not only did, of course, California put forward the Nick Shirley Act at the state level to ban independent journalism, which, okay. This is how CNN covered this kind of fraud.
CNN is looking into Shirley's claims.
Hi, my name's Whitney Wild. I'm a correspondent for CNN.
We reached out to several of the daycares featured in the now viral video. Only one daycare facility answered and said they are a legitimate business.
Have you seen the videos, purporting that some of these daycares don't have kids inside?
Minnesota Republicans say despite the new focus from the Trump administration, they have been sounding the alarm on fraud for years.
So where have you been? Where have you been? I remember when the Minneapolis Star-Tribune published a lot of these stories. I know because at the time for some of these, I was in Wisconsin in Governor Walker's office. And as someone who was I was actually his junior education policy advisor. It's a title about as important as feet on a fish. But I read a lot of these stories and reports from other states nearby to analyze how states were interacting with their legislature. I know, very, very boring stuff. I remember these stories. And do you know the national media coverage that came out of it? Zero. And it wasn't until Nick Shirley went to Minneapolis and opened some of these cases again by putting them in front of the American people that it just so happens that they ended up catching some people doing stuff that they absolutely should not have been doing with your money. Now, we're going to get to the manhunt investigation in a second here. Here's one of them, though. Minneapolis daycare owner Fahima Egeh Mahmoud has now been charged with wire fraud and conspiracy for allegedly stealing over $4.6 million through false claims to federal and state programs. That thing that you were told wasn't happening. I mean, come on, Nick Shirley probably made all that stuff up. Well, now she's been charged with a good 4.6 in wire fraud. You had daycares that were faking burglaries into their, they stole all of our records by breaking in through the interior drywall. No, they gaslit and they lost. Radio crew will send you guys to the commercial side so I don't get slapped with my own FCC fine. We're going to continue on the live stream unabated because the FCC ain't got no jurisdiction over there. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. And when I say that they gaslit you, I mean from the actual argued, quote, the 43-minute video posted to YouTube the day after Christmas by a 23-year-old conservative content creator claimed with little evidence Somali-run childcare centers in Minnesota were fraudulently taking funding meant to provide childcare for low-income families. Oh, there's very little evidence. I mean, it's almost non-existent. Interesting stuff. Now, that brings us over to the manhunt side because so many were allowed to get away with this for so long. Because it took such a long time to get some of these investigations in full force because we were busy playing angels in the streets of Minneapolis and other nonsense. The Department of Justice also announced that 32-year-old Muhammad Abdulkadir Omar, the accused Minnesota fraud suspect seen on video jumping from a fourth-story balcony while fleeing federal agents, is wanted in connection to a $3.3 million Medicaid fraud scheme and remains on the run. So here is this particular individual. I mean, just looks like the nicest guy. You know, and if you notice anything, you're very, very bad and stinky and awful. Don't be noticing, you know, in anything immigration related wise there. They've also released a picture of the car that he is supposedly driving. So keep an eye out for this very fine, upstanding nuclear physicist or doctor or whatever you're supposed to automatically think of when you see Somali immigrants in the country. So in all of this fraud, one would believe that right now, we would be looking into each and every case here that you would see the left calling for the police to come in and investigate mismanaged spending as much as anybody else because they're the ones calling for lots of state and federal spending, right? No, in fact, when you talk to Ilhan Omar or AOC, when you talk to any of the Democrats so far that I have seen, what do they say? Well, a lot of these are victimless crimes. They're Brianna Joy Gray from Bernie Sanders' office, who hosts a podcast and also is calling for the death of Kevin O'Leary. We'll get to that later. Is also one of the people that, these are victimless crimes, so nobody's getting hurt here. Well, unless they are. This is actually costing people their lives, not just their life savings.
One defendant is charged with defrauding the Integrated Community Supports Medicaid program. This program is designed to help individuals with disabilities live independently. One patient was supposed to be receiving 24-hour care through this program, but he was actually being serviced by a fraudster and received no services. This patient was later found dead.
I mean, there you go. It doesn't get any clearer than that. This is the final message from Assistant Attorney General Colin McDonald. Not bad.
And now my message to the fraudsters is this: eat, drink, and be merry today, because your days of frolicking and freedom are numbered. We are doing everything we can to find you. And when we do, we will prosecute you, and we will claw back every dollar you have stolen from the American people.
Now, there are not just some Democrats that are under suspicion at the present time. There are some Republicans as well around the country who are accused of taking some kickbacks and looking the other way, when a lot of Americans right now, again, because of the work of Nick Shirley did not unearth a lot of these stories and that he discovered them when looking through the data. We've talked to some of the reporters, our own Mehek Cook at the Daily Signal, of course, Luke Rosiak at the Daily Wire. Nick Shirley brought it in front of the American people after they had been stored in the cold case files, and then said, here's what to look for. There are some Republican, for example, secretaries of state that have ignored and refused to investigate, let's say, shell trucking companies, like in my own Hoosier state. But alas, we have other news to cover. We've got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Don't go anywhere. There is a ton to cover tonight. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
We will fight. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. The Democratic National Committee, so the Democrats, have finally released their autopsy from 2024. Now, why does this matter? Why talk about like a big autopsy as though this is huge breaking news? Because they were adamant after the 2024 presidential election where they got beat with a belt. They were adamant about not releasing it. Oh, we're not going to touch it. We're not going to release it. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to kind of leave it alone because we're looking forward. We're looking to the future and other nonsensical kind of corporate niceties. Now we know why they didn't release it. It's bad. It's really, really bad. My team has spent the afternoon since they released it going through all 192 pages, and it is a train wreck on top of a disaster. And the response to it since then, because Ro Khanna and other Democrats are now starting to come out and talk about it, it's worse. It's much, much worse. So first of all, you know it's going to be good when the chair of the DNC, Ken Martin, has to come out. Now, he's also the former chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party, which has nothing to do with farmers, but the guy who's in charge of the Minnesota, known for its honesty and goodness, Democrat Party, is now the chair of the DNC. So he released his own statement when the autopsy was released today. And it's basically a, please don't be mad. I know it's awful, but please don't think that it's the worst thing that we've ever made ever. Here's his statement. When I was elected DNC chair, I commissioned an after-action review of the 24 election that I wanted to be honest and transparent with actionable and specific takeaways for the future of the Democratic Party. Wow, it's exciting. When I received the report late last year, it wasn't ready for prime time, not even close. And because no source material was provided, it would have meant starting over. Couple of questions, right up front here. After a year, it's not ready for prime time? I used to do academic writing. I did a lot of research work, a lot of my team, back when I ran Chalkboard Review. Producer Daniel and producer Lou, we used to dive through all kinds of stuff to present large reports in order to assess impact and look at how things were being managed at the policy level. It's not that difficult to assess what went well and what went wrong during a campaign. There are entire firms that are a waste of space in many cases that do this for a living. They couldn't get it together. And he said also they provided no source material. My brother in Christ, the entire election has been cataloged more closely than any election in human history because of the advent of social media and every single phone recording not at potato level quality. We have every detail down to the cent. We know that because of things like Kamala Harris spending $100,000 to redo a Call Her Daddy podcast set in a hotel room. So let's actually, dive in here. He says, for full transparency, I'm releasing the report as we received it in its entirety, unedited and unabridged. Wow. I mean, just exciting stuff. Now, he then released a second follow-up statement on Substack. I guess his first statement wasn't good enough. He said, people need to be able to trust the Democratic Party again. Trust is critical. Because we're $3.5 million into, because I also ran for chair as a reformer. So let's actually get into some of the first page is where it goes completely off the rails. It's just 10th grade AI slop. It is. And this looks like a 10th grader trying to write an essay and get in as many words as possible. So it says, disclaimer, this document reflects the views of the author, not the DNC. The DNC was not provided with the underlying sourcing, interviews, or supporting data. So already they say this entire report is wrong. There's a ton of stuff in it that makes no sense and that you're going to laugh at, but it's not my fault. Which is really how you want to start your, we need to see who is to blame for getting the crap beaten out of us in the 2024 election cycle. And it's just, it's like the Webster's Dictionary defines an election cycle as two major parties and hundreds of outside groups investing enormous resources and energy trying to define the terrain for voter choice.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So past the introduction that was written by the very first version of ChatGPT and exported explicitly from the Somali luring center. Oh, thank you to my team for reminding me. That little disclaimer at the top is on every single of the 192 pages. Every single page. Oh, goody, goody gumdrops. Which is great because I know something about one of the later pages that makes that disclaimer really funny. But alas, we'll move on here. It's filled with errors like the Democrats netted 2 seats in the House and flipped 10 seats from Republicans while losing 8. And then there's a little box that the Democrats later put in that says this data appears to be inaccurate and contradicts public reporting. Which means it's wrong. Democrats did not just grab 2 seats in the House and flip 10 seats from Republicans while losing 8. No, that's not even remotely true. Another one. Every election cycle since 2008 has reflected an increasing polarization in our national politics, with narrowing margins determining control in each successive cycle. That actually is true. There is an increasing polarization in our national politics, but they have now put here analysis not supported by publicly available data. Then later on, they have "It's the future, stupid" in bold letters saying no sourcing provided for several claims in this section. It's just incredible. It's insane. This is the official DNC report for the party. And it is written like a freshman intern at a coffee shop. It's truly bizarre. The report authors just may have had worse dementia than Joe Biden himself. They had no idea who was the president in 2022. So they're talking about the 2022 Georgia Senate election. They said this was a blatant attempt by the Republican power base to take advantage of name recognition and tough economic conditions to push through an unqualified candidate whose job would have been a little more than rubber stamping the president's agenda. The president in 2022 was Joseph R. Biden. And, I mean, even better, several sections of the document are just left empty. What happened? The electoral review. So here's like that. What actually happened? Why did we lose to Donald Trump and a bunch of Republicans? Introduction, pending. National overview, pending. Battleground state outcomes. States which had consistently and reliably voted for Democrat candidates, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, voted for Trump. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Incredible. Also suggesting that Trump won the election by a little more than 2 million votes in the popular, meaning the election was swayed by 0.15% of the votes. That's not how none of that makes any sense. And they disputed their own data. It's a disaster. It gets better. Of greater consequence is how the 2014 Republicans, gains featured the election of increasingly radical Republicans, which made normal governance nearly impossible. The inability of Republicans to manage these forces cumulated the early resignation of Speaker John Boehner in 2014. John Boehner resigned in 2015, not 2014. And these are only the pages that have anything in them. There are entire pages of this that are just blank. They're just blank. There's nothing in them at all. But rest assured, that disclaimer is still up there at the top. This is page 7 of the report. It just says executive summary. And then there's just nothing. Just nothing at all. Incredible, beautiful, exciting. So, the Democrat Party is having a pretty rough time. Radio crew, we're going to send you guys to the commercial. We're going to continue on the live stream because the reaction to this is even worse. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, what are the big takeaways here? Number one, Joe Biden and his dementia is not mentioned once, anywhere at all in the entire 192-page document. Not once is he meant, not any of this. All of Joe Biden, again, who later on people would say right after the election was dead. He wasn't there. He was lying on Rehoboth Beach. No one knew where he was. They left all of this out of their big, huge, super duper report.
That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
Mr. Haney?
Yeah, all that stuff. You remember all the Joe dementia? None of that was mentioned. Not even once. It gets better, though, because, again, there's a matter of why does this have any weight to right now? Why talk about it? The Republican National Committee right now has $123.9 million in the bank account on hand in what is going to be a very contentious midterm cycle. It is, and Republicans are ready to spend. The DNC right now has $14.4 million on hand, while they also have $17.5 million in debt. I'm not sure how that works and why the money isn't just taken. These different accounts here. They did just spend $70 million in the redistricting fight that they lost. So now the Democrats, about $3.1 million in debt, now have to win a midterm in which they're likely to spend a ton of money in races that they think are really worth their while that aren't going to work. So for example, the Democrats, according to some internal emails, believe Ken Paxton of Texas is a really easy target, and James Tallarico, the vegan believes Jesus was trans candidate, Beto O'Rourke 2.0, 3.0, I guess, because Colin Allred wasn't anything special either. They believe this guy is going to take down Paxton if they just throw enough money in. So they're going to waste a lot of money just for Paxton to beat Tallarico. Excellent stuff. Since we've gone through this report, Democrats are now getting out in front of the country, and the new leaders of the party are telling us what they think of the autopsy. Now, are any of their takeaways that it was written by brain dead people, that they don't even know what days and months and years are, or that they have no problems with Kamala Harris or Joe Biden? In fact, the entire summary of the document, what's there, basically blames Joe Biden for not setting the stage for Kamala Harris and being you go girl enough. What does Ro Khanna of California, the buddy of Thomas Massie, what does he think is the problem? That we didn't focus on Gaza and the Palestinians enough, guys.
There is not a single mention of Gaza in the 192-page DNC autopsy report that was just released today. As someone who campaigned in Michigan and Wisconsin, let me tell you, one of the reasons we lost is our blank check to Israel and Netanyahu while they committed genocide in Gaza.
See, that's the problem. It's the Jews. That's the issue. We weren't Muslim enough, guys. I mean, come on. I mean, can't you see right now in the country how much Americans are just thrilled with unfettered Islamic immigration? I mean, we didn't talk about Gaza enough. Oh, silly us. That's what we've got to do going into the midterms. Beautiful. Now, the radio crew is going to come back in just a second here. There are a couple of other statements that are being thrown out. There are Democrats that are running and sprinting away from any kind of comment at all, anywhere, any shape, any kind, because this is a disaster. If the party can't distribute monies and a strategy, it's a rough look for the midterms. We're going to bring the radio crew back in, and then we're going to get into some of this really rough response. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So, Ro Khanna, the new sort of leader of the Democrat Party, because it's not Hakeem Jeffries. He's currently running away because people have asked, hey, you know how Graham Plattner is pleasuring himself in porta potties and bragging about it and saying that he thinks other veterans should have died and that women should be getting abused? That's actually what the Democrat Senate candidate for Maine, Graham Plattner, that's his little platform. Hakeem Jeffries isn't the leader of the party. When he's asked about it, he books it.
Mr. Leader, is Graham Plattner a liability for Democrats after those lewd Reddit posts were exposed?
I haven't seen those posts.
Oh, I haven't seen anything.
Senator, is Graham Plattner a liability right now for Democrats after those Reddit posts, the lewd posts? That just
Chuck Schumer, there he goes. Oh, bye, Chuckles.
Senator, do you rescind your endorsement of Graham Plattner after those lewd posts on Reddit?
Oh, hey, Elizabeth Warren, you just endorsed Graham Plattner. That dude that's talking that really gross stuff. Nothing?
Are you reconsidering endorsing Plattner after those lewd Reddit posts that came out?
Oh, nothing. No comments from anyone. Incredible. So someone's going to fill the vacuum. Who's going to fill the vacuum? It's Ro Khanna, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. The guy who doxed innocent people on the floor of the House and has decided that, again, everything is just the Jews. All right, well, he's got another hook. He's now very angry at South Carolina because he thinks that South Carolina is doing the political persecution of black people now. So we're going back to this well that hasn't worked out at all.
We must stand up to this modern-day Dred Scott court. They have unleashed a process that will eliminate the only black majority district in the state of South Carolina. South Carolina has a black population of 25%, but they would be left with not a single black majority district or black political representation in the House.
As a reminder, little fun fact here, Ro Khanna is from one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, California. So that's a first. Number two, Dred Scott, dear Lord, what a disgusting thing. Dred Scott, again, the case in which Dred Scott versus Sanford, 1857, was the enslaved African-American who tried to sue, and the Supreme Court ended up, the Dred Scott v. Sanford case, the final ruling stated that black people don't get to be, they don't get to be people. Again, I will remind you that American citizens in this country absolutely do have the right to vote. Of course, he knows this, he's a liar. And also, that reminds me, South Carolina's senator, that's Tim Scott's state. So black Senator Tim Scott, who is not allowed in the Congressional Black Caucus, by the way, because he's a Republican. So incredible. This is where we're going. This is the move. This is the plan. Exciting, thrilling stuff. Ilhan Omar is also out there, and she's mad now because of all of these fraud investigations and people asking about her and her husband, and also whether she tried to block subpoenas on the Somali migrant fraud that, again, we're getting additional tens of millions worth of fraud updates every single day.
Yeah, that this is just a made-up lie because you do not investigate someone for 10 years and not come up with anything.
So then why do you think it's still...
You don't investigate someone for 10 years and not come up with anything. Could I interest you in the President of the United States of America, Donald John Trump? Are you serious right now?
Being talked about.
Because these people are disgusting. They believe in weird, creepy things, and that's why they want to believe in this weird.
See, that's the thing. Again, Ilhan Omar, who said, investigate me. Just open in front of God and everyone. Hey, investigate me. Oh, I'm so arrogant. Just come on, investigate me. I can take it. I can handle it. It's not going to bother me. And then complete and utter silence. So, really, really great stuff on that front. Chuck Schumer, he's out with his own line. He's really, really angry because he says Republicans and their super extreme MAGA agenda, Capri Sun radical monster energy bill.
Where the hell is the bill?
Where?
Republicans still haven't released the text of their radical MAGA reconciliation wish list.
The radical MAGA super duper alley-ooper angry extra Hitler Stalin. It's extra bad
list, just hours before we're expected to vote on it. Where the hell is the bill?
Oh, he's so mad. Can you feel the energy? I mean, hey, this is the strategy going forward. Let's go. I'm thrilled. It's exciting stuff. Now, in the rest of the country, because again, the DNC is not providing any leadership. Hakeem isn't providing any. Schumer is yelling about radical MAGAs on skateboards. Sounds pretty cool. Then you've got the House, which is just on fire for the Democrats. It's a big, huge struggle. And again, Republicans are not exactly carrying a serious torch right now on some of the congressional stuff for a number of reasons. But no worries, where the federal leadership will end, the state and local leadership shall begin. So New York right now, which is under all of the water. New York is just a complete disaster zone. Again, a lot of thunderstorms, a lot of flooding that's going on. And well, here, we can throw this clip up to show you how bad it is. Things are very, very under the water. Not exactly great. People are being swept away by the flooding. Again, not good, Bob. Not very good. Now, again, is the mayor supposed to, get out in front of people and stop the flood waters? No, dude's not Moses. You can't, should there have been better preparedness and planning instead of hiring equity people? Yeah, there should have. But you knew that this wasn't going to go any better after all of the nonsense with the snow. So what is Zoran Mamdani focusing on? Is he out there directly? After all, he's Mr. Get Your Hands Dirty Mayor. Remember, he's going to go and investigate all of the apartments. He's going to look around. He's going to stop all of the... Well, he is out here with the biggest concern of all amid all of the flooding in New York City. He's going to sell some World Cup tickets through a Soviet-style lottery. I'm not kidding. Here you go.
What can $50 get you in New York City? 25 cups of streetcar coffee. 10 months of hard-hitting journalism.
See? Yeah. So he also, he's going to make fun of the New York Post for calling him a communist. Yeah, okay.
Still a classic. infinite rides on the Staten Island Ferry. And for 1,000 lucky New Yorkers, a ticket to the World Cup.
Oh, see, it's literally the Soviet Union thing, where they would say, for 1,000 lucky Soviets, we will send you to the sporting event. I know you cannot for lots of rubles that it takes to go to event, but for 1,000 lucky New Yorkers, we will give to you, the wonderful people, a $50 ticket to the World Cup. It's very important. It's super duper important. Das Vidanya.
That's right. Last year we said we'd fight for cheaper tickets for New Yorkers. And today I'm proud to announce, just like Arsenal, we got it done.
Oh, yeah. People are drowning, Zoran. And just like these kind of antics back during people freezing to death. Man, excellent stuff. On the California side, it's not getting any better. Now, so there's currently a fight right now between Chevron and the Democrat Party in California. Now, there's a couple of things here that's really funny. At the corporate level, Chevron has decided to be one of the most emasculated, cucked organizations by its own employees. So Chevron has a small class that chooses not to do a lot of building work on new refineries. And I have some of this knowledge from individuals who I've spoken to in the company itself. But alas, Chevron, who is under some investigation in a couple of states for some price gouging, don't know if there's anything to that, but just worth pointing out here, that Chevron really doesn't like Gavin Newsom going after it in the California side of things. And so they have posted a reminder saying, hey, just letting you know here, it's Sacramento. It would be the California Assembly that has put all of the taxes and regulations on planet Earth at the gas station, which is why you're paying more. So this little display is at all of their Chevron stations. This is according to the New York Post. So Gavin Newsom decided this is the fight he wanted to pick. And so he basically said from his little press office, Californians, if you're hitting the road this holiday weekend, be sure to avoid Chevron. Pro tip. Unbranded gas comes from the same refineries, storage tanks, and pipelines, and it meets the same state standards, we're going to come back to that, to keep your engine running clean, even if it doesn't have a fancy name like Techron. And then he starts posting, like, supposedly where there are gas stations that are cheaper. But there's a little bit of an issue with that. That would be Chevron is required to use a proprietary blend to meet top-tier gasoline standards that are more stringent than state DOT minimums. An independent analysis found top-tier gas averaged 19 times fewer intake valve deposits and 2 to 4% long-term improvement in fuel economy, which just means this. California requires Chevron to come up with this super-duper incredible, I guess as Chuck Schumer would call it, super radical, energy-ridden kind of formula in order to provide that gas in their state. So Gavin Newsom was originally trying to suggest that it's all Donald Trump's fault. And again, crude oil is falling today. It's crashed, below $96 a barrel. As again, the situation in Iran, which hasn't received the support it wanted from China, hasn't received the support it wanted from Russia, and we're going to get to some of those foreign policy updates in a minute. When gas prices do start to come down, they're not going to in California. They're going to stay in the $6 and $7 range because the California Assembly is going to keep it there. So, amid that and also the raging fires that are still sweeping through California, the joke that has been made, and no, not really a joke in this case, but still should be pointed out here. It's the sarcastic barb that is being thrown as people see just again additional brush fires in California, all over the state. Is there even going to be water in the fire hydrants because of all of California's little special environmental and equity standards? That's still up for debate. We're going to send the radio crew over to commercial and get into some other news here in the meantime. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, live stream crew, let's get into just a smidgen of some of the foreign policy fights here on the Tony Kinnett Cast, because there are a couple of details that you really should be aware of as some of the things from Poland to Cuba to Iran are developing. So first of all, to kind of get it out of the way, there was this huge rumor that Donald Trump was going to pull a bunch of troops away from Poland. And I remembered saying, hey, wait up on that a little bit. I doubt that the United States is going to be yanking a bunch of troops out from Poland right after we told Germany to kind of beat it and we were going to put troops in Poland. So the president of the United States announced today that he is sending 5,000 troops to Poland. So it did end up being a delay and not a cancellation or a sending a bunch of troops home from Poland. On the Cuba side of things, people in the Cuban regime are getting really nervous. Because if they accept the United States proposal from the State Department that the Catholic Church drop in a bunch of foreign aid and it has to be distributed from the Catholic Church, because the Cuban regime has stolen the solar panels, the food, the fuel, all other sources of energy or sustenance, the medical supplies, and taken it for themselves. You know, communist government's going to communist. The Cuban regime doesn't want the Catholic Church to be handing it out. Number one, because the communist regime kind of despises God. And number two, because if the people are given sustenance, they're going to recognize that their regime could have brokered this deal a lot earlier. And additionally, the USS Nimitz and its strike group is now operating in the Caribbean. And Raul Castro, the brother of Fidel, has now also been indicted. So the president was asked about this today. Here was his response.
Regarding Cuba, there was an aircraft carrier that just arrived there this week, the Nimitz aircraft carrier. Are you sending that there to intimidate the Cuban government?
No, not at all. The Cuba, look, it's a failed country. Everybody knows it. They don't have electricity. They don't have money. They don't have really anything. They don't have food. And we're going to help them along, and we're going to help them because the people, because number one, I want to help them. I don't want to on a humanitarian basis, but we have the Cuban American population, much of it living in Miami and Florida. That's a great group of people, amazing group of people, industrious, they're great Americans. They've wanted this to happen. They want to go back to their country. They want to help their country. I hope they're going to stay here, but they want to go back. They want to invest in their country and, you know, see if they can bring it back. Other presidents have looked at this for 50, 60 years doing something, and it looks like I'll be the one that does it, so we'd be happy to do it. We want to open it up to Cuban Americans where they can go back and help.
Now, I'm going to be quite clear with you that the president is sandbagging there. And no, when he says, oh, no, it's not meant to intimidate, it's just a reminder. It's just a reminder that the only reason that Cuba has existed was because the Soviet Union was big brother. And no. And also because Bill Clinton was a coward. So, you know, that stuff aside, you know, just making it crystal clear for everyone. And yeah, I don't think that you're going to see the Cuban regime is like putting out a lot of really tough statements over on like the embassy side. Yeah, there's not a ton of substance there. We're going to bring the radio crew back one more time. We have a lot more to cover this evening. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Good to be back with you. Some of the updates on the Iranian situation, because again, I'm not really seeing a lot of the other major news shows kind of around the country keeping these things up to date. There's a lot of distraction in media right now and focus on things that aren't actually news, which I find rather confusing. So here's the updates that there are only like 3 outlets that are talking about. The state on the ground right now, Iranian media is continually trying to suggest that they are striking fire drones on every oil tanker that's attempting to leave the Strait of Hormuz without paying. This has been disproven, according to Iran Flash News. No, I mean, first of all, during the time that they had originally suggested, they're out here pot shooting different, international tankers all around the world. There wasn't even a ship that was trying to transmit the strait. Now, the IRGC has shut down one of its communications accounts, and there's no idea why. Again, the internet outage is still on in Iran. They have, once again, since the last time I told you this, they have changed their policy on the Strait of Hormuz a number of times. Now, the United States is still suggesting, maybe there's an opportunity to strike some kind of deal with Iran. No. What the President of the United States has been trying to get through his Secretary of State and his negotiation team through the thick skulls of the Iranians, at least as far as the IRGC. President Pezekian, President Pez Dispenser, and even to a degree, Ghalibaf from the parliament understand that if the other countries do move into Iran and start taking pieces, Iran's not getting those pieces back. President Pezekian understands that because that's what Trump has been planning, and not exactly secretly, this entire time. Pakistan sent a ton of troops, a ton of jets, a ton of accoutrements, some hors d'oeuvres over to Saudi Arabia, essentially to get ready. So everyone's kind of getting ready to do a little boogieing down in Iran. And the president is kind of giving them one last chance. Now, here's the catch. The IRGC is not going to take the chance. They really believe that Allah is going to bring them justice, and he's not. As Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, maybe he's asleep, maybe he's on the pot, I don't know. Now, according to a final decision by Iran's supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, who still, to this day, no one has seen at all, he has made an ultimate decision not to hand over Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpile to Washington. Yeah, that's not going to go very well. Now, that's according to Al Arabiya, citing a high-level source. So, see, we're already playing the telephone game. Trump made it clear that that's not going to be a thing also today. Here you go.
Well, we want it open. We want it free. We don't want tolls. It's international. It's an international waterway. They're not charging tolls. Right now, they are losing $500 million a day is what it's projected. I don't know, it sounds like a lot of money, but whether it's 500 or 200 or 300, they're losing a lot of money. There hasn't been a ship that's been able to get through without our approval. And the Navy has done an amazing job. And no ship is going to Iran, as you know. No ship is going to, or out of Iran without our approval.
At any point, if the president of the United States wants to go in and get things done, he can. He can. Now, the real question is going to be, are the other foreign powers going to go in? Are the Kurds also going to rise up and decide to do things? When is that going to occur? I will say only this. At some point or another, the Trump administration is going to have to come to the conclusion that it is time to finish this and finish it quickly. Getting into the waiting around, are they gonna, are they not gonna? No. Do the thing, do the stuff, get it done with. And after that, after, again, the United States forces seize Karg Island and the Saudis are occupying the Strait of Hormuz on the other side, however that is set to work. And after you see the Kurds rise up, things are going to get a lot more interesting, not near the Strait of Hormuz, but near the Pakistani border. Because again, I will remind you right now, Pakistan and Afghanistan, and Turkmenistan for that reason, but no one really ever talks or cares about Turkmenistan, they're having some disagreements at the moment that are going to spill over into those ethnic regions. We'll forget this from time to time, but it is worth citing and reminding. Now, there are a couple of other details on some of the international side that we could dive into on shipbuilding programs and kind of like a military restructuring. There is a case from the Department of War and the Department of Justice that is worth saying. I should mention before we're done here, though, this afternoon it was announced Pakistan's Army commander was supposed to make a trip to Tehran, and now he is not traveling to Tehran. So something from China has told Pakistan that they're not really allowed to kind of weigh in on the side of the Iranians at this point. We're going to have to see how that plays out. I'm not making any big predictions. That is one last thing there. There are some defense contractors, according to FBI Honolulu, that were trying to do a little gouging of the Trump administration through this entire process of rearming the United States, through the procurement process. Guys, Todd Blanche ain't playing around. He's not. I'm say what it is that you want, but we are seeing now a lot of individuals who have been encouraged to, according to a friend of mine in the Department of Justice, raise a flag. Whenever they see something that is getting really expensive really quickly for no reason, flags are being raised really quickly. I'm seeing FBI offices issue statements on arrests that I didn't even know they had Twitter accounts anymore. So things are going to get interesting over the next couple of months on that side of things. Now, the President of the United States, his focus is on the Supreme Court. For one thing, because the Supreme Court is getting ready to rule on this birthright citizenship case, although it's not necessary. Although a lot of the arguments have been had about birthright citizenship, the case itself isn't really a great 14th Amendment on its face value and subject to the jurisdiction thereof clause that has so much of a hullabaloo surrounding it. Nevertheless, here was the president's statement about this today.
Now we have another one coming up, birthright citizenship. It would be a disgrace. It would be a disgrace if the Supreme Court of the United States allows that to happen. Remember what I said, 20 to 25% of the people coming into our country will come in through birthright citizenship. They'll become citizens through birthright citizenship, and it'll cost us numbers that are, I don't even think they're doable. And it's all up to a couple of people, and I hope they do what's right.
Okay, so again, to be quite clear here, the Supreme Court decision that's up for discussion isn't on the 14th Amendment and the clause, the jurisdiction thereof itself. It's not the best case to do so, but alas, those are often the cases that are argued before the Supreme Court of the United States. At some point, Congress is going to have to delineate and figure out some of the things that are necessary to restructure how the United States handles immigration, how it handles assimilation, and how it handles citizenship as a whole. It's going to have to figure it out for the modern age because birth tourism is increasingly an issue for the United States. But the Supreme Court arguing this, they're arguing what the Constitution currently states. Now, is Congress actually doing anything to effectuate changes here? Well, the House is passing a lot of bills forward. The Senate is doing nothing. Tom Tillis from North Carolina is throwing a fit. Bill Cassidy is still throwing his toys. Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, and then Susan Collins of Maine, they're not really doing anything effective. So the Republican Senate is kind of dead in the water. And that'll bring us to some primary conversations later. There's a lot more to discuss on the live stream tonight. Radio crew, we're going to send you out for the evening. And yeah, I'll answer the question about the whole Diego Morales Secretary of State thing in Indiana for my home WIBC station if you want to join us. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, let's get over to the other side of the fraud investigatory stuff because the Southern Poverty Law Center, even after their big slam down, knockdown, drag out, super duper ultra hearing, in which I didn't hear anything at all suggesting that the Southern Poverty Law Center's hands were clean. Jasmine Crockett is still mad about it. So as you may remember, Jasmine Crockett went on this huge, angry, rage-filled tirade in which she suggested that asking the Southern Poverty Law Center why they funded and assisted in planning several neo-Nazi events, like why that's kosher with their 501c3 nonprofit status. Jasmine Crockett went in on this huge outrage about white supremacy and murders and lynching and lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
We haven't had one hearing on white supremacy. Yet when we look at things like the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the 9 worshipers who were murdered at the Mother Emanuel AME Church, the 23 people murdered in 2019 during the shooting at Walmart in El Paso, the 10 people murdered during the 2022 shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo. Y'all need to read up on your history books, the very same ones that the Republicans have decided that people should not hear about because you don't want representation in this country that it is against.
So she went on for a long time. You're just angry, just mad. She's still mad. So she's also introduced a Stop Trump Act that she says is going to help Americans on groceries. And she says that that those who were wrongly prosecuted on the January 6th stuff, that because they are being allowed to get settlements, she's going to stop that via a congressional law, which, honey, sweetie baby, that's not how that works. And that's supposedly going to be the thing that pays everything off. And the Democrats are doing the same thing also with Jeffrey Bezos on the Amazon side, suggesting if we just sell his yacht, we could pay for all of the teachers in the whole world. Stupid. But a lot of this does come back to the Southern Poverty Law Center because the person that she was yelling at in that clip was my dear colleague. We bring on Tyler O'Neill from the Daily Signal, senior editor, and fresh off of Capitol Hill from duking it out with some of our very fine representatives. Glad to have you. Tell us what you know from the SPLC hearing. The committee, did it go anywhere? Is there anything really to be done? I know Jasmine Crockett was whining, but what else occurred of substance?
Yes, well, it wasn't very substantive when Jasmine Crockett, who's already, been voted out of her office, decided to unleash her tirade against me. I really felt like I was her therapist, as I said.
Reclaiming my time.
Happy
Next.
to do that. Yes, they're white supremacists.
Woo, thank God. Jesus Christ, I didn't think we were going to get there. Oh my gosh, let me be clear. Proud Boys are freaking white supremacists. Neo-Nazis are too. And this president, who loves to coddle white supremacists, has decided that they should be given checks.
Did you nod knowingly and write it down yes, thank you, Jazz. That's very exciting.
Yeah, right. I should have said and for our next session, I'll actually explain why not every Republican is a racist POS.
Guards, this woman has lost her composure.
That would have been hilarious.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
What do we actually expect for some of the after effects from this committee? Is the SPLC going to get the angry letter treatment here? What can we expect in the next couple of months from this whole thing?
Well, so Jordan just announced that SPLC interim CEO Brian Fair will be testifying next month in the committee in a public setting. So we'll have, a public hearing with the leader of the SPLC himself there. I think the major thing, Tony, that came out of this hearing is just the fact that more Americans are tuning in and paying attention and knowing that the Southern Poverty Law Center is a corrupt smear factory that it is. I mean, I think this is the main, it's the reason why I wrote the book, Making Hate Pay. It's because I want more Americans to realize that whatever you think about the Southern Poverty Law Center, and look, I acknowledge they've done good work in the past. They still do good work on the margins. But right now, they are a force for division and demonization and routine defamation in our country. They put good people, moms and dads who want a say in their kids' education, on a map with the chapters of the Klan. And they suggest that Christianity itself is a form of hate and bigotry.
I saw that, the catechism thing. In fact, Josiah, rolled that clip.
Mr. Perkins, should the Southern Poverty Law Center have had such a high level of influence in federal agencies?
No.
No. Mr. O'Neill.
No. In fact, with the FBI memo, the SPLC has suggested that the Catechism of the Catholic Church is itself a hateful document.
It's unbelievable. I'm a Roman Catholic. I resent that, Ms. Wiley. I'm not a hateful person. I would never hurt anybody. I resent that. And so do a lot of Catholics.
Yeah, and that, Tony, is only one example. I mean, what we saw last year when the SPLC put focus on the family on the hate map, they had a guy out there. Yeah, well, I mean, when they did it, which is bad enough, and then they had a guy out there who defended it, and he said that it is not only false, but dangerous to hold the traditional Christian view on sexuality, to hold, and the way he phrased it was, that LGBT people have to deny who they are to be truly Christian. And it's like, well, no, actually, if you want to follow the Bible, you should do what the Bible says. And the Bible is clear about the identities here. Now, that's not to say, I think the gospel is open to everybody. And I'm a sinner just like everybody in that movement is. So this isn't about being holier than anybody, but it is about what the gospel says. And the gospel is trying to save people from sinful lifestyles like those ones. And when you go out there and say that it is hateful and dangerous to even believe that you can't be a Christian and also embrace, this pride movement, then what you're doing is you're systematically defaming conservative Christians. And that's all, these are Christians who are Catholic, obviously with the Catechism, Christians who are Protestant, Christians who are Eastern Orthodox, and by the way, non-Christians too also follow general Christian sexual morality. So it is beyond the pale how far the SPLC is demonizing people. And I'm very glad to have this megaphone to say, look, I understand you may agree with the SPLC on a few things, but this is a corrupt smear factory that has no business being cited by big tech, that has no business being the tool that corporate America uses to prevent donor funds from going to hundreds of conservative nonprofits. I mean, the stink to this organization, it rots to high heaven, and it is high time that America's high institutions, that our social institutions understand that and distance themselves from it.
Last question here, because this is where the rubber is going to meet the legal road here. On the backdrop of some of the crimes they're being accused of by the Department of Justice, I know that a lot of things were brought forward. Some of them were not necessarily walked back. They were kind of scaled back in the time and the scope of certain statements that were made as to, well, we have them here, here, and here, and maybe there isn't quite so many things on the rights. What should we look for in how some of these crimes are labeled out? I mean, they lied to their donors as to what they were doing with the monies. What can we expect in kind of the legal challenges over the next couple of months?
Yeah, so there are a few legal challenges that we should be paying attention to. Over and over, we heard Democrat witnesses and Democrats say a few things. One of them that no donor has asked for their money back in giving to the SPLC, and many donors have said that they either knew about this or had they known, they still would have given money. So I think that is going to be somewhat of a hurdle. There's another hurdle that the SPLC has said, and we have to get into the specifics of this. I don't know the specifics, but they've said that at least two of the DOJ's cases against people who were planning violent attacks were tipped off by their so-called informants, their field sources, ahead of time. And so their program, as they came out and originally said it saved lives, it may have indeed prevented some violence. But the thing that they keep failing to address, in my mind, is that the SPLC, dead to rights in the indictment, we have an SPLC an SPLC staffer saying, I'm opening these accounts for Fox Photography and these other, shell companies that they're propping up to divert money. They say, I am the owner and sole proprietor of this entity. And then a few years later, the president of the SPLC tells the exact same bank, these accounts were opened and were monitored by and used by the Southern Poverty Law Center, which very clearly, I don't know if the DOJ charged the right statute, but that's really
mental
dicey.
Legal gymnastics.
Right.
That's very, very dicey.
Yeah.
Tyler O'Neill, our senior editor over at the Daily Signal, thanks for giving us a couple of minutes, kind of walking through some of this. And the next time you're giving a therapy session on Capitol Hill, give us a ring.
Yeah, will do. Thanks for having me, Tony.
All right, let's talk a little bit here about some of the last section stuff. So I mentioned that I was going to cover this yesterday. We didn't have enough time to. So here in Bonus Tonus, I figured we would get into that portion of the stuff. So on a totally different state fraud situation, again, you may know from our investigation, of course, from our colleague Mehek Cook at the Daily Signal, in which at the beginning of this year, she went all through Columbus and documented a lot of this bizarre fraud and these really creepy empty buildings that are supposedly businesses, but are absolutely not. And then, of course, the Somali fraud investigation and the home care and the Medicaid fraud that was discovered and dove into by Luke Rosiak over at the Daily Wire, as well as some of the phenomenal crew over at the Capitol Research Center, Parker Thayer. So since that, the Californian legislature has gotten really, really, really upset, including the number one thing Democrats trot out, angry white women to say, that's like really racist. Have you even thought like how racist? It's like, oh my God.
Also, I would like to point out that the majority of people on Medicaid in Ohio are not from the Somali community or from communities of people of color. The majority are actually white.
Yeah, guys, like the majority of people on Medicaid are like actually white people. I mean, sure, a bunch of these businesses just happen to be owned by Ahmed Mahmoud, and they all just so happen to own both a trucking shell company and a fake hospice or home care company. And sure, all of the businesses are registered to very Somali names. I don't know how many corn-fed white Midwestern boys go by the name of Muhammad Abdullah Salman. Like, stop it. If your name sounds like it came from the open sequence of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, I'm guessing you're probably not Jim Beam from out in Dayton, Ohio. No, I don't think so.
So for you to imply the racist information that you're
on
giving,
Medicaid or home health?
On Medicaid and home health.
You do imply that that there's like a culture. That's very offensive. It ruined my kale salad.
We are. When you look at the numbers of people that are in Ohio,
there are at least 5 people in Ohio. Did you know that? It's a fact.
White population versus people of color. You're implying that most of the fraud is happening in communities of color.
I'm not implying it. I'm stating it.
Luke Rosiak, very clearly, yeah. See by the individuals who again carry the names and the culture and the status of this kind of thing. I don't exactly sit down in a beautiful piece of Amish furniture and then go, wow, this is incredible. What Russian built this? I don't do that, because you see, after you see some Amish furniture for a while, kind of get it in your head, hey, and this apple butter doesn't taste Chinese. It's kind of incredible. I mean, I don't exactly sit down to a delicious meal of butter chicken and go, the French. No. Man, the Somalis just keep defrauding businesses. Yeah, well, did you know that a lot of white people exist? Yes, I'm very well aware. And I'm seeing a lot of white people not committing fraud. Again, what do you mean by white people? What kind of Europeans are we talking about here? We're talking the Anglos, or, I guess Jews and Italians and the Irish and a bunch of other, I guess they're all, considered white now too. What do you mean?
I would like to see actual numbers besides the overall.
Just please, through the chair,
Yes,
with your
sorry, through the chair.
back and forth.
I'd like to see numbers. And not just the numbers that because she realizes that I'd like to see the numbers. What does Luke do? He's like, well, we just happen to have, you want numbers? We got numbers, no problem. And she's like, different numbers, like 5 and 7, and incredible.
I would just like to see true data and numbers, because I think what's being presented here is very different from what we heard during our joint committee.
Your question doesn't even make sense. You're acting like it's either or through the chair. Of course, it is true what you said. There are these minimal statements. That does not imply that there was not additional fraud, which they failed to detect. They very much did fail to detect that. You mentioned the AG. Well, the AG also told this committee months ago that Ohio law caps Medicaid fraud as a low-level felony. So
we don't want to go up against Luke Rosiak. Luke Rosiak is not an influencer. He's not. He will disappear for months at a time and then come back. He'll emerge from the shadows to announce that this massive investigation that he has been working on tirelessly from here, there, and everywhere, all over, he has brought it forward, and it's all built on empirical data. And it is. And then it's like double fact-checked by the Manhattan Institute and several other institutes out there. The man's got that stuff. So that said, a little bit of fun there on that particular investigation. I wanted to bring you guys that clip. That means it's time for just a little mail time.
On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Okay, great question. First, I guess is kind of more of a critique, kind of a comment here. Again, for mail time, a little viewer engagement here at the end of the show. It's not special. It's not super duper original. It doesn't need to be. The best way to get mailtime questions to us, you head to the Discord link in our description. There's a little mailtime channel where I read all of the questions some of you probably should have kept to yourself. And we'll dig into a few of those. Some of them are really great. So one is from a very great member of the YouTube channel. Her name's Velvet Jazz Wonderful. We love having Velvet Jazz. They're great. They said, hey, look, I love your accents, but you're doing too many of them lately. I must very unfortunately tell you that I don't really control the accents that I do. See, I have very, very, very aggressive ADHD, and it just pops into my head. I don't come up with a plan. I don't even think I could list for you the accents that I do. So I'm sorry, that's a personal flaw, and either the switch would be on or the switch would be off. So whether it's Donald J. Trump or Bernie Sanders or, whatever, those just kind of just happen. So if that's not your thing, I'm very sorry. Sometimes there's going to be shows with less accents. Some days there's going to be quite a few. what are you going to do? So that's kind of a thing. I don't know. Some days I have a lot of puns. Some days I'm not so punny. One of those things. So there's just kind of an upfront answer there, because I think sometimes, those kind of things happen. It's a fair critique. For some, it's annoying, and I don't blame them even a little bit. From R. Waring in the Discord, can the person that wrote the after action report sue for reputation issues, or at least go on TV and reply? One of the first things that the DNC said after their little autopsy release was that we should get lawyers to sue the writers of the trash report. No, you can't. And the reason that you can't is when you hire a contractor to do things, and if they just say, we're not ready, you didn't agree on a date or a series of things, it may not have been in the contract at all. A lot of these things are subjective, and you would actually have to say, well, here's what the damages are. Right now, the damages are that everyone is laughing at them. So it's probably unlikely they could actually make anything substantive with a lawsuit like that. This is just going to, again, remind everyone that the Democrat Party, from the Hassan Piker socialists and things that we're going to get to here in a second, all the way up to the old, wretched leadership of the party, they have no idea what they're doing. They counted on a bunch of gerrymandered districts and old tricks and garbage. to just carry their way forever. And so the last saving grace of the Democrat Party right now is genuinely and really the inactivity and stupidity often that comes from Republicans, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. That's what'll do it. So let's move on to the next question here, because I've gotten a ton of questions from many of you about this whole Kevin O'Leary thing. So Kevin O'Leary went on TV or some podcast recently, and he said apparently something that is super no-no and like so insensitive. How could he do this? So let's get out the pearls and get ready to do some clutching. Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank super whiz.
Can't stand it when I see kids that are making 70 grand a year spending $28 for lunch. I mean, that's just stupid. It's just, think about that in the context of that being put into an index and making 8 to 10% a year for the next 50 years.
Okay, so we said two things that really upset like the millennials on down, and a lot of the, again, I've grew up with a lot of millennials, being one. And the pearl clutching, oh, how could he say this? So first of all, he said that you shouldn't be buying $28 lunches. That's true. That's absolutely true. Very correct. You shouldn't be buying $28 lunches. You make $70,000 a year. You're making $150,000 a year. Why are you buying $28 lunches every day? Food is expensive. Make your own food. And you say, well, that's like a lot of work and stuff. No, if you're concerned about your finances, you don't need to DoorDash stuff all day. And everyone from Taylor Lorenz all the way up was like, oh, DoorDash is like a human right, guys. It's so important. I need to go get fast food and this really expensive salad over lunch. No. And by the way, this did get far enough that I saw a tweet in which someone said, well, you should just make sandwiches and take them. And then someone thought they had them, and they said, it's actually really expensive to make a sandwich. And they showed the purchasing price, or the prices, I should say, of bread, meat, cheese, and mayonnaise. And I enjoyed sitting back and watching people from the youngest to the elderly roast them, saying, honey, sweetie baby, the point of buying the loaf of bread, the meat, the cheese, the mayonnaise, whatever, is that you can make multiple sandwiches. To which his response is, well, I'm not going to be eating sandwiches all the time. There you go. So there's nothing wrong at all with what Kevin O'Leary said. The man's correct. And Kevin put it nicely compared to how Dave Ramsey will do you. Kevin O'Leary's better than you deserve. So anyway, Kevin's right there. No, this got a lot of people very upset. And I did go get this loaded for you here. There is a lady by the name of Brianna Joy Gray, who used to be Bernie Sanders' special comms director. So she's a super duper socialist. She's also like a racial violence advocate. And she's the host of the Bad Faith podcast. So she's a terrible person anyway. She's also the former senior politics editor for The Intercept. So this woman's got a card record of crap. She quoted this and said, they are throwing the book at Luigi so that he can feel safe saying this. Allow me to expand on the bracketed terms here. They, as in the government, is throwing the book at Luigi Mangione, who murdered United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, who wasn't even the healthcare CEO of the company that Luigi Mangione had for his insurance. So that Kevin O'Leary can say or can feel safe when he says that you shouldn't be spending $28 a day on your lunch every diggity dog dang day. So when we tell you, and I mean we all the way from the Generation Z conservatives below me, like Turning Point USA, to the last of the millennials at age 30, yours truly, to the conservatives in their 40s, and their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, when we tell you that the youths of the left just are openly fine with any kind of violence and they will kill you in a heartbeat, Exhibit A. Now, she did delete this tweet after people started tagging the FBI, maybe just openly saying, yeah, I want to kill Kevin O'Leary because he said, don't spend $28 on lunch every day if you're making 70 grand a year. Incredible stuff. Now, by the way, he did also come out and say something that got people really, really angry after that because he was asked about this. And his answer, by the way, was also correct.
You have said that people who spend $5 on a latte are stupid.
Yeah, I'm right. If you have a credit card balance that goes into the next month and you're spending $5 on a coffee.
So if you're in debt, your credit card balance is high, and then you go out and buy $5 coffee.
You're crazy.
You're crazy.
Because that $5 could have been used, or $5 a day. Usually it's more because you're getting 2 coffees a day. You're getting one in the morning, one at night. If I'll give you permission to buy a coffee for $5 if you have no balance on your credit card at the end of the month. 23% interest. The reason I own all the credit card companies is people that are paying 23% interest.
The host is just so insulted.
Why would you do that to yourself? I can't make 23% in the market every year. Why would you let someone do that to you? And so,
and by the way, and I don't know actually anything at all about this host. The host may be totally fine, but she looks as though she doesn't like it. I don't know. That's just my take there. I could be wrong. I will say this, and I looked up the price just now. In the lobby, I have a beautiful brick packed like a cocaine block of Cafe Bustelo. It's not the original Cuban coffee recipe, but it's darn close. It's $6.37 right now at Walmart. You get it from Kroger, it's $7.39. Oh, they're kind of ripping you there. Ouch. All right, it's not insanely expensive. It's not. And from that one little brick, and I have some out in the studio, I can make at least like 36-something, 40-something cups of coffee in my coffee pot. I'm like, well, I shouldn't just, that's kind of a necessity. Is that? No. He's not wrong. And if this is going to be the source of all the outrage and the violence and things, now again, the other thing he said that upset millennials is when you say compound interest, it like sends a lot of people in my generation to their therapist immediately. He said compound interest because we were all told growing up, again, from people like Dave Ramsey, that if you just put a little money away, then compound interest would kick in and you would get more money because that's how things work. But again, a lot of people don't follow that because, a lot of people blow through everything as soon as they get it. And I'm supposed to feel bad for them. And I'm sorry, but there are families who are struggling financially. There are those who are struggling financially for legitimate reasons. And I'm supposed to treat all of the people that are young and are spending $28 a day on their lunch, I'm supposed to put them in the same category, in the same bucket. No, it's not the same thing. And pretending that you're all just victims of capitalism. No, absolutely not. Also, enjoy giving away most of your paycheck so that everyone else can live on kind of handout programs that everyone's stealing from. So that kind of a thing, I think, is, rather important on that side. So last but certainly not least on the male side of question here, I took a second to actually glance over at the comment section, who's always very upset with what I'm drinking. But that aside, I live in Indiana. So for those of you tuning in from around the country, around the world, I live in Indiana, broadcast out of Indiana. There is a big hullabaloo going on right now with our Secretary of State. So a bit of background here. There's a Secretary of State that we have whose name is Diego Morales. Now, I am on the record, back when he was running for office for the very first time, not as gorgeous and handsome as I am now, but on the radio and live stream, way back on WIBC, when I didn't have a show, I was just a guest, saying I had met Diego Morales, I think, at a 2022 Lincoln Day dinner. And I hate Lincoln Day dinners. And he met me and immediately said, "Oh, Tony, I know all about you." And the used car salesman smile that he flashed me, I did not trust for a second. And I took a lot of grief at the time from Republicans around. I said, I don't trust him. And I got a lot of, come on, this guy's great. He's great. He's wonderful. And no, he's not. And by the way, I really don't follow a lot of state politics very much. But the dude's kind of a skis. And I said that for a long time. And I advised a lot of people around me, hey, don't endorse this dude. No, thanks. When it came time to go vote, I left it blank because I didn't like a lot of the other people running. I've never trusted for or voted for Diego, for that record. However, now he's in a lot of scandals because a lot of people asked, quite correctly, I would suggest, hey, why aren't you investigating all of those empty shell trucking companies? And did you hire someone who's not a citizen to be like in your office? People had some questions. Well, apparently these scandals have gotten rather spicy. And now a bunch of people are pulling their endorsements right before our convention, which is how you sit, kind of like that side of the primary for some of those state level offices. Who do I support instead? Is it going to be Max Engling, a former congressional candidate and the current regional director for Jim Banks? Is it going to be Bo Bai? Well, it's not going to be Bo Bai, the Nepo baby. Absolutely not. It's not going to be Greg Ballard, who is so out of touch. I'm pretty sure he came from Hathaway Strategies in Chicago. I guess it'll probably Max. I don't really care as much as a lot of my colleagues do. I know a lot of people, because I'm out of WIBC, expect me to be as focused on Indiana politics. I have never really been. But I'm on the record, and I just don't find it as interesting. There, I told you the whole story. I mean, I guess there's somebody's wife in there who like has like a sex toy business. That's really weird and creepy. And again, I despise Indiana politics. I do. I despise them. I don't care for them. You ever see me have a state representative on the show? Nope. There's only one that I could think of who I would have, and that's because he's a decent dude, not because, well, maybe two. The guy that I'd want to be the next speaker for, or the pro tempore for the leader of the Indiana Senate. Local politics annoy me. So I wish I had more for you on the scandal. I'm sure it's like, oh, we really wish you were going to get into it. I never trusted him. I don't like him. And also, how about a Secretary of State that does things? All right. Hopefully that was worth it. I don't know. It's one of those things. On that side, are there any other questions on that line about people in the state and who I do and don't support right here at the end? Maxwell House tastes better than Cafe Bustelo? Oh man, wrong. I love you. My heart goes out to you. But like, I'm sorry, the person who made that little critique, absolutely not. Am I a WNBA fan? No. Do I care how the Indy Fever have been doing? No. I don't watch the WNBA. I don't. I will say this. The only thing about the WNBA that I think is really funny is that Angel Reese from the Chicago Sky was put on the cover of like one of the NBA management games, which is hilarious because her shooting record is like one of the worst in existence of all time. Most of her rebounds come from herself. But as far as the WNBA in general, yeah, I mean, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, yeah, they're great. I'm not entertained. I've tried watching Indy Fever games and like, oh, wow, they're our team. I don't care. But don't you? No. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you. One of those things. So that all said, we'll come back tomorrow. There's more news that's getting ready to happen. Oh, she's in Atlanta now. Who's in Atlanta now? Don't be just saying who's in Atlanta now. Who's? Oh, Angel Reese is in Atlanta now, as opposed to the Chicago Sky. Why would Atlanta take her? Oh yeah, the Atlanta Dream. Well, yippee. I mean, okay. All right, there you go. See? You guys take care. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Nationally syndicated here on the Daily Signal and first out of 93 WIBC.